Hi guys, and welcome to this introductory video to topic 7 of GCSE psychology, the brain. I'm going to be talking about the basics of the nervous system and how it responds in the fight or flight response, covering everything that you need to know. So the first thing is that the nervous system is split up into a couple of different sections. You need to know that it's firstly split up into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, and that the peripheral nervous system is further split into the autonomic nervous system, the ANS, and the somatic nervous system, the SNS. You need to know the structure of each of these, so that means what it is made up of, and you need to know the functions of each of these. So let's jump through those quickly. So firstly, the central nervous system. This is not too difficult. It's essentially made up of two things. It is the brain and the spinal cord. That's quite a common small exam question. What two things make up the central nervous system? You just need to know that it's the brain and the spinal cord. Now, what exactly does the central nervous system do? Well, it does quite a few things because it's made up of the brain, and the brain is responsible for lots of things. So easiest way to sort of describe it is as it says on the screen. The central nervous system coordinates incoming information. So that means it processes incoming information, it detects threats, things like that. And it ultimately makes decisions about what to do. And when it makes a decision, it will then send a message down through the spinal cord out to the muscles in the body, and that will then be using the PNS, the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system is essentially made up of millions of nerve fibers and neurons that run throughout the body. And it, in terms of its function, well, it is actually split up into its two subcomponents, the ANS and the SNS, and these have their own specific functions. So, the autonomic nervous system is responsible for controlling your involuntary vital bodily functions, such as things like your heart rate, your breathing rate, essentially pumping blood around the body, basically keeping you alive. And the somatic nervous system is somewhat the opposite. It is responsible for controlling your voluntary muscular movements. So every time you move a muscle, because you've chosen to do it, whether it's raising your hand or going for a walk, that is the somatic nervous system. It also sends messages back to the central nervous system that the body's receptors pick up from sensations. So here's an example of an exam question from a previous exam, and it's kind of like getting you to process your understanding of the functions of the central and autonomic nervous systems. And this one says that Nikki was telling her husband about what happened on her drive home. I was driving along when a man started flashing his lights behind me. I pulled over and the man got out of his car. I thought maybe I had a broken light. He started shouting at me and tried to get in the car. I was shaking and my heart was beating so fast it felt like I could hear it. With reference to Nikki, outline the functions of the central and the autonomic nervous system. Well, I always say for these questions, save the explanations and the references to Nikki until after you've outlined your knowledge first of all. So probably best case, look at the model answer, tell me what the central nervous system does, that's the function, and then link it to Nikki. Then tell me what the autonomic nervous system does, and then link it to Nikki. So an answer could go like this. The central nervous system is responsible for processing incoming information, like detecting threats and making decisions. For Nikki, her central nervous system processed that someone was flashing lights at her and processed that he was a threat when he started shouting. The ANS is responsible for controlling involuntary and vital bodily functions like heart rate. In Nikki's case, it caused her heart rate to increase when she was scared. When you break it down like that, it's really not too bad. Okay, the next thing that you need to know is that the autonomic nervous system can be in two different states of being, two different conditions. The one that it's in most of the time, which hopefully it's in right now, is the parasympathetic state. This is your very sort of calm, relaxed, normal state of being. Everything is slow, everything is chilled, everything is normal. When you're maybe feeling a bit tense, a bit nervous, or something has scared you, your autonomic nervous system will switch to the sympathetic state. And this is often called the aroused state. It happens during like a moment of fear or anxiety. You need a rapid response, and it's where everything basically in your body increases. What sort of changes? Well, let's have a little look at the grid here. So as you can see, in the calm state of being for the autonomic nervous system, everything is sort of slow, and everything is kind of like mostly sort of like tightened up in the body, because we don't really need to worry too much. However, when we are put into that aroused state, that sympathetic state, because maybe something has caught us off guard and scared us, everything sort of increases. The easiest examples are definitely that the heart rate increases and the breathing rate increases. The rest are little bonuses, but you could probably get away with just knowing about the heart rate and the breathing rate. So what you need to know all of that for is to link it together for the role of the nervous system in the fight or flight response. So basically, the fight or flight response happens when we perceive that there is a threat and we need to make a quick reaction. So the first thing that happens is obviously we need to process that there's a threat. So that's the role of the central nervous system. It detects the threat, and let's say that it's like hearing footsteps behind us on a dark night, not very nice. We automatically will get a little bit worried about that. So the central nervous system will process that and send a message to the autonomic nervous system that we're in danger. The autonomic nervous system will take that message and it will move us to the aroused sympathetic state, and all of those physiological changes will start to occur. So we'll start breathing more, our heart rate will go up, trying to pump blood around the body to the muscles faster, trying to get us ready in case we need to act. There's also an increase in adrenaline. So the hormone adrenaline gets released into the bloodstream as well, which really helps pump the body up to either stand and fight our ground or run away if necessary. What we'll then do is we'll make a decision about what we're actually going to do. And then once the threat is over, we will then return to the parasympathetic state. So everything will slow down, calm down, and we'll start to rest and recharge. Again, here's another example of an exam question using the fight or flight response. It goes, use your knowledge of the actions of both the central nervous system and the autonomic nervous system to explain Mark's experience. So Mark was hiking through the mountains when he spots a grizzly bear roaring about 100 meters to his right. He immediately feels his heart rate increase, his breathing quicken, and feels himself start to sweat. He decides to turn around and run back down the mountain he came as quickly as he can. When he reaches the bottom, panting, he sees a mountain guard and explains what he saw. So firstly, we need to talk about the actions of the CNS and ANS and then link it to Mark. So the CNS is responsible for recognizing all threats and activating the fight or flight response. The ANS is responsible for involuntary vital bodily functions like heart rate. Mark's central nervous system recognizes the threat of the grizzly bear, enters the fight or flight response, and makes the decision to run. Mark's autonomic nervous system is responsible for moving into the sympathetic state and increasing his breathing rate and making him sweat. So we've kind of covered what they do, and we've covered how they've worked for Mark in this case. Right guys, that's the basics and the introductions for the brain topic done. Everything you need to know about the nervous system, including its structure and its function, and how it is involved in the fight or flight response.